The bus station in Denver smells faintly of diesel and burnt coffee, and Daniel Carter stands still for a moment as travelers move around him, rolling suitcases over cracked pavement, unaware that for him the air feels different, heavier, and cleaner at the same time. He adjusts the strap of his worn duffel bag and looks up at the wide Colorado sky, a pale blue stretch thin over the mountains he used to drive past on weekend leave. 3 years is a long time to imagine a horizon. He breathes in deeply, as if testing whether it is real. His reflection in the glass of the terminal startles him slightly. Leaner now, a thin scar cutting faintly along his jaw, hair trimmed short but threaded with early gray at the temples. There is no parade waiting, no cameras, just a quiet pickup arranged by an old family friend who could not stop shaking his hand at the curb. The drive toward Cedar Ridge takes 45 minutes along Highway 285, past open stretches of land where fences run for miles and cattle graze under the late afternoon sun. Daniel keeps his eyes on the road, but his thoughts drift to a house with a white porch railing and a worn wooden step where a German shepherd used to sit every evening, ears high, watching the driveway. He swallows once and asks the question he has held since the plane touched down. How is Rex? The friend hesitates just long enough for Daniel to notice. He explains gently that after the memorial service, after the months of waiting, Daniel's parents tried their best, but time has waited. They are older now. The house felt too empty. Rex is safe, he says quickly, at a shelter just outside town. They take good care of him. Daniel turns toward the window, watching pine trees blur past, his fingers tightening against the fabric of his duffel. Safe is not the same as home. Back at the shelter, the afternoon light angles through the high windows, casting long bars of gold across the concrete floor. Rex lifts his head slightly at the sound of a delivery truck rumbling into the parking lot. For a second his ears twitch, a reflex older than disappointment. He rises slowly, joints stiff from years that have not been kind, and steps toward the kennel gate. The truck door slams. Footsteps crunch across gravel. A stranger's voice laughs near the entrance. Rex waits for the scent that never follows. After a moment, he lowers himself again, chin resting on his paws. His collar, the same brown leather Daniel fastened years ago, still circles his neck, the metal buckle cool against his fur. He does not understand calendars or memorials. He understands patterns. The way boots once sounded on the porch. The way a voice would soften before giving a command. As the sun dips lower and paints the mountains in amber and shadow, a silver pickup turns off the highway and onto a narrow county road lined with cedar trees. Daniel feels his pulse steady and unsteady all at once. He is 42 miles from the dog he told to stay, and for the first time since he left, he does not know whether that word still holds. The silver pickup slows as it passes a weathered wooden sign that reads Cedar Ridge Animal Shelter in faded blue paint, the gravel crunching beneath the tires like a sound from another lifetime. Daniel feels his heartbeat in his throat, steady but heavy, as if each pulse carries 3 years of unsaid words. The building is smaller than he imagined, a low structure with white siding and a narrow porch lined with metal bowls drying in the late afternoon sun. He steps out of the truck, and the air smells faintly of hay and disinfectant, of earth and something warmer beneath it. For a moment, he does not move. He listens. Somewhere inside, a dog barks twice, sharp and hopeful. Another answers with a softer tone. The sounds travel through him like an old echo. Inside, the shelter is quiet except for the hum of a ceiling fan turning slowly above the reception desk. A volunteer with kind eyes looks up and offers a gentle smile that falters when she recognizes the name he gives. Daniel Carter. The name hangs between them like fragile glass. Her expression shifts from routine politeness to something tender and stunned. She whispers that they have kept Rex's collar the same, that he is not bonded with anyone else, that he waits near the gate every evening when the light begins to fade. Daniel nods once, unable to trust his voice. They walk down a narrow hallway lined with kennels, the scent of fur and metal and patience filling the space. Paws shuffle against concrete. Tails tap against chain link. Some dogs rise eagerly as he passes, pressing noses through the gaps, sensing something different in the air. At the far end, in Kennel 14, a sable shape lies curled against the back wall, head resting low, ears relaxed in a way that speaks more of resignation than rest. Daniel stops walking. He does not call out. He does not rush forward. He simply stands there, hands at his sides, boots planted on the concrete floor that feels colder than it should. The volunteer whispers his name toward the kennel, soft but clear. Rex lifts his head slowly. His eyes, once bright as polished amber, seem dimmed by waiting, yet they still hold that deep intelligence that does not fade with time. He looks toward the doorway, gaze moving over the volunteer first, then shifting to the man standing beside her. There is no immediate reaction. No bark. No leap. Just stillness. Daniel feels the silence stretch, thin and sharp. He lowers himself carefully to one knee, the way he used to when tying a leash or checking a paw, and rests his hand against the cold metal of the gate. He does not reach inside. He does not say the dog's name. He lets the space breathe between them. Rex studies him, nose twitching once, twice, as if testing the air for something buried beneath memory. The room feels smaller, the hum of the fan louder, the world narrowing to the space between a man and a dog who were never meant to forget each other. Silence can be louder than a command, and in that narrow hallway it presses against Daniel's ribs until he can feel it in his breath. Rex remains still at the back of the kennel, eyes fixed on the kneeling figure beyond the gate, as if weighing something too large for instinct alone. Daniel keeps his hand resting lightly against the metal, fingers steady despite the tremor running beneath his skin. He studies the dog's face, the faint whitening around the muzzle, the small notch in the left ear from years ago when a training fence caught him mid-leap. Time has traced its lines across both of them. The volunteer steps back quietly, sensing that whatever happens next belongs only to the two of them. Daniel lowers his gaze for a moment, not in defeat but in patience, remembering that trust is never forced. He draws in a slow breath and lets it out carefully, allowing the familiar cadence of his breathing to fill the space. Rex's ears shift slightly forward. It is a small movement, almost invisible, but it is there. Daniel does not say the dog's name. Instead, he tilts his head the way he used to before early morning runs, when the world was still dark and commands felt softer than daylight. His voice, when it comes, is low and even, carrying no urgency, only memory. He speaks a single phrase that once meant readiness and unity, words spoken at the edge of open fields and empty trails. The sound is not loud, but it carries the rhythm of countless shared miles. Rex's body stiffens. His nose lifts higher, testing the air with deeper intent. One paw slides forward against the concrete, claws clicking faintly. Daniel feels the shift before he fully sees it, a current running through the space between them. He stays where he is, resisting the urge to reach farther, understanding that recognition must arrive on its own. Rex rises slowly to his feet. The movement is careful, deliberate, as if stepping through layers of time. His eyes narrow slightly, not in doubt but in focus, and his chest expands with a longer inhale. The scent that has lived somewhere beneath memory begins to surface, subtle yet undeniable. Daniel's shoulders soften. He whispers the phrase again, steady as a heartbeat. This time Rex takes a full step toward the gate. The chain rattles softly as his tail lifts halfway, uncertain but awakening. The room feels suspended, every sound distant except the quiet rhythm of breath and the soft scrape of paws drawing closer. Daniel remains kneeling, palms still against cold metal, offering presence without pressure. Rex reaches the front of the kennel and stops inches away, eyes locked on the man before him. He leans forward slightly, nose hovering near Daniel's fingers, and inhales deeply as if searching for proof beyond sight. In that fragile space, between scent and certainty, the years begin to loosen their grip. There is a moment when recognition does not explode but settles, like dust catching light, and Daniel feels it in the way Rex's breath changes against his fingers. The dog inhales again, deeper this time, and something shifts behind. His eyes, a quiet ignition that begins not in excitement but in certainty. Daniel does not move. He lets his hand remain where it is, palm open, steady as it was years ago before dawn patrol runs along the tree line. Rex's nose presses lightly against his knuckles. The contact is brief, almost testing, then lingers. The scent is no longer a question. It is memory layered over bone and muscle and leather and morning air. Daniel swallows hard as he feels the faint brush of whiskers against his skin. He whispers the phrase one more time, softer now, not as a command, but as a reminder. Rex's ears rise fully for the first time since Daniel stepped into the building. His tail, which had hovered uncertainly, gives a slow, deliberate sweep from side to side. The sound of it tapping the metal gate echoes gently down the hallway. Daniel sees the exact second the past folds into the present. Rex steps closer, chest brushing the chain link, and lets out a sound that is not a bark and not quite a whine, but something deeper, something that has waited 3 years to exist. Daniel reaches for the latch with careful fingers and looks once toward the volunteer, who nods silently. The gate opens with a soft metallic click that feels louder than it should. For a heartbeat, neither of them moves. Then Rex closes the final inches, pressing his forehead firmly against Daniel's shoulder as if anchoring himself to something solid and known. Daniel exhales in a way he has not allowed himself to in years. He wraps both arms around the dog's neck, fingers sinking into thick sable fur, feeling warmth and weight and life. Rex leans fully into him, not frantic, not wild, but steady and absolute, as though he has simply resumed a position that was never meant to change. His tail moves with stronger rhythm now, brushing against the kennel wall, and a low trembling sound hums from his chest, vibrating against Daniel's collarbone. Daniel closes his eyes, resting his cheek against Rex's head, breathing in the familiar scent of fur and leather and something unmistakably home. Around them, the shelter seems to fade into quiet reverence. The years of waiting, the unanswered questions, the empty porch, and the long winters compress into this single steady embrace. Rex shifts slightly and licks once at Daniel's jaw, a simple gesture, gentle and sure. Daniel lets out a breath that trembles and steadies at the same time. He presses his forehead to Rex's and whispers his name for the first time since returning. Rex responds not with noise but by tightening his stance, paws planted firmly, body aligned as if reporting for duty. The word stay had held through absence. Now another word rises quietly in Daniel's chest, unspoken but understood. Home. Daniel stays kneeling on the concrete floor longer than he realizes, one hand resting at the base of Rex's neck, the other pressed gently along the dog's shoulder, as if confirming that warmth is not a memory, but a living thing. Rex does not pull away. He shifts his weight closer, leaning his full strength into Daniel's chest, steady and deliberate, as though 3 years of absence have collapsed into this single point of contact. The low hum in his throat continues, not loud, not dramatic, just constant, like a small engine finally allowed to run again. Daniel lifts his head slowly and studies the familiar lines of Rex's face, the way the amber eyes soften when they meet his. There is no confusion there now, no hesitation, only recognition settled deep and firm. He rises carefully to his feet, joints stiff from travel and emotion, and Rex mirrors him instantly, stepping back just enough to stand aligned at his side. The movement is instinctive, practiced long ago on quiet roads outside town, when sunrise would paint the sky in pale orange and they would walk shoulder to shoulder without speaking. The volunteer watches from a respectful distance, one hand covering her mouth, understanding that she is witnessing something that does not happen often. Daniel reaches down and takes hold of the worn leather collar, fingers brushing the familiar buckle. He feels the grooves in the metal, the small scratches that mark years of service and waiting. Rex's tail moves in steady rhythm now, not frantic but confident, brushing against Daniel's leg as if reaffirming position. When Daniel takes a step toward the open hallway, Rex falls into stride beside him without instruction, head level, body aligned, as if reporting back to a post he never abandoned. The sound of their footsteps echoes softly against the walls, boots and paws moving in quiet synchrony. Outside, the late afternoon light has shifted toward gold, casting long shadows across the gravel lot. The air carries the scent of pine and cooling earth. Daniel pauses just beyond the doorway and inhales deeply, the mountain breeze brushing against his face. Rex lifts his nose as well, tasting the air, then looks up at Daniel with steady expectation. There is no fear in him now, no trace of the dog who lay resigned at the back of a kennel. There is only readiness. Daniel crouches once more and presses his forehead gently to Rex's, a silent exchange that needs no command. The years have altered them both, carved new lines, quieted certain parts, strengthened others, but the bond between them stands untouched. When Daniel finally straightens and walks toward the truck parked under the fading sky, Rex moves at his side, close enough that their shoulders brush with each step, as if closing the last remaining inches that time once tried to claim. The gravel shifts beneath their steps as Daniel opens the passenger door of the silver pickup, and Rex pauses for half a second, studying the interior, as if confirming that this, too, is real. 3 years ago, he would have leapt in without hesitation, front paws landing first, body turning in a smooth, practiced motion. Now he moves with measured grace, placing one paw on the running board, then the next, easing himself onto the seat beside Daniel, as though reclaiming a familiar post. Daniel closes the door gently and circles to the driver's side, the late afternoon sun dipping lower behind the mountains, casting long amber streaks across the windshield. When the engine starts, Rex does not startle. He sits upright, head high, gaze forward, posture steady and alert, exactly as he once did on long drives out to open trails beyond town. Daniel glances sideways at him and allows the smallest smile to settle across his face. The road back toward Cedar Ridge stretches in a quiet ribbon of asphalt, pine trees lining both sides like silent witnesses. The truck rolls past open fields and split rail fences, past mailboxes that have not changed and a gas station where the same faded sign still promises fresh coffee. Rex watches everything with careful attention, ears flicking at distant sounds, nose lifting slightly whenever the breeze slips through the cracked window. At one red light on the edge of town, Daniel rests his hand lightly on Rex's back. The contact is simple, steady, grounding. Rex leans subtly into it without looking away from the road ahead, as if to say he has been ready for this touch all along. When they turn onto Maple Street, Daniel's chest tightens, not from fear, but from memory. The white porch railing comes into view, paint slightly more worn, flower pots empty now in the cooling September air. The house stands exactly where it always has, framed by 2 tall pines and a gravel driveway that crunches under the tires as the truck pulls in. Rex's body shifts before the engine even stops. He knows this place. The door opens and he steps down carefully, paws landing on the same ground he once patrolled in quiet circles at dusk. He stands still for a moment, nose working the air, tracing scents layered across seasons, then looks up at Daniel with an expression that is no longer questioning. Daniel walks toward the porch and pauses at the bottom step, hand resting on the worn wooden rail. Rex climbs the steps beside him, each movement slow but sure. When they reach the top, Rex turns once in a small circle, then sits facing the driveway, ears forward, posture calm and dignified. Daniel watches him and understands without words. The waiting is over. The post has been reclaimed. Under a sky fading from gold to deep blue, man and dog stand together on the porch where absence once lived, their shadows stretching long behind them, no longer divided by distance, but joined again in quiet, unwavering presence. Night settles gently over Cedar Ridge, and the first porch light Daniel flips on casts a warm circle against the wooden boards beneath their feet. The bulb hums softly, steady and familiar, as if it has been waiting for this exact moment to glow again. Rex remains seated at the top step, posture tall, ears forward, watching the quiet street with the same unwavering focus he once held as a younger dog. A pickup passes slowly at the end of Maple Street, headlights sweeping briefly across the yard before disappearing, and Rex does not flinch. He simply tracks the movement, then returns his gaze to the driveway as if guarding what has been restored. Daniel lowers himself onto the porch step beside him, elbows resting on his knees, hands clasped loosely together. The air carries the scent of pine and cooling earth, and somewhere in the distance a screen door closes with a hollow clap. For a long moment, neither of them moves. The silence is no longer heavy. It is full. Daniel turns his head slightly and studies Rex's profile against the dim blue of the evening sky. The gray along the muzzle is more pronounced than he remembers, and the muscles beneath the sable coat move with slower precision. But the strength is still there, quiet and grounded. Daniel reaches out and runs his hand slowly down Rex's back, feeling the steady rise and fall of breath. Rex leans into the touch without shifting his watchful stance, tail resting calmly against the boards. After a while, Daniel stands and opens the front door. The hinges creak softly, a sound that once meant routine and now feels like return. The living room beyond is simple, unchanged except for a thin layer of dust that catches the light. A folded American flag rests on the mantel beside a framed photograph of a younger Daniel in uniform, Rex seated proudly at his side. Daniel steps inside and Rex follows without command, paws moving across hardwood floors that remember him. He pauses in the center of the room and inhales deeply, nose tracing old scents layered into the grain of the house. He walks to the corner near the window where his bed once lay, now empty except for the faint outline pressed into the floorboards. Daniel watches him quietly, then retrieves a folded blanket from the hallway closet and spreads it carefully in that same spot. Rex circles once, slow and deliberate, then lowers himself onto the blanket with a satisfied exhale. His head remains lifted, eyes following Daniel as he moves through the room, turning on lamps, opening windows an inch to let in the mountain air. When Daniel finally sits back down on the couch, exhaustion and peace sharing equal space in his expression, Rex rests his chin on the edge of the cushion, close enough to feel Daniel's presence, far enough to keep his quiet dignity. Outside, the stars begin to appear above the Rockies, steady and unhurried. Inside the house, for the first time in 3 years, the waiting has ended, replaced not by celebration or noise, but by something steadier. Presence. And it is enough. Morning arrives slowly over Cedar Ridge, pale light slipping through the living room windows and settling across hardwood floors that have waited too long for footsteps. Daniel wakes before the alarm he no longer needs, sitting upright on the couch as if some part of him still answers to reveille. For a brief second he forgets where he is, then he hears it. The steady rhythm of breathing at his feet. Rex lies on the folded blanket near the window, chest rising and falling in calm, even cycles, one ear angled toward Daniel even in sleep. The house feels different in daylight, less like a memory and more like a beginning. Daniel stands and walks quietly to the kitchen, filling a stainless steel bowl with fresh water, measuring out food with the same careful precision he once used for gear checks. The simple routine feels sacred. When the kibble touches metal, Rex's eyes open immediately. He lifts his head, alert but unhurried, and rises with a stretch that travels from front paws to tail. There is no confusion in him now, no searching glance toward doors or empty driveways. He walks straight to Daniel, stopping close enough that their shoulders brush. Daniel sets the bowl down and rests his hand briefly against Rex's neck before stepping back. Rex eats with calm focus, pausing once to look up, confirming presence. After breakfast, they step outside together. The mountain air is crisp, carrying the scent of pine and distant wood smoke. Frost lingers faintly on the grass, shimmering under the first rays of sun. Daniel walks down the driveway without speaking, and Rex falls into stride at his left side, matching pace naturally. They move past the mailbox, past the fence line, toward the open stretch of road that leads beyond town. There is no leash. There does not need to be. Half a mile out, Daniel stops and looks toward the ridgeline glowing gold against the morning sky. He breathes in deeply, then glances down. Rex is already sitting at heel, posture tall, eyes forward, waiting not for a command but for shared direction. Daniel smiles, a quiet curve that carries gratitude more than relief. 3 years of distance dissolve into the sound of boots on pavement and paws against gravel. When they turn back toward the house, the sun is higher, warming the porch boards and the white railing that once held only absence. Neighbors begin to step outside, surprised to see a familiar figure walking beside a dog who had never truly given up his post. No words are needed. Daniel reaches the front steps and pauses, resting his hand lightly against Rex's head. The bond that endured through silence stands firm in morning light. Some promises are not broken by time. They are held by scent, by memory, by faith that does not ask for proof. Under a wide Colorado sky, a man and his dog reclaim the simple grace of being side by side, and in that quiet alignment, both find what they were waiting for all along.